Hey, I'm Jamie with Guitarist magazine. Now, a couple of weeks ago, our friends down at Vintage and Rare Guitars in Bath, which is one of the best vintage guitar stores you'll find anywhere, happened to be chatting to them, and they said, do you know what, we've got quite a nice selection of Les Pauls in at the moment. Would you like to come down and do a video with some of them? And the answer, of course, was yes. And what a selection we have. We've got everything from genuine original 59 bursts through custom shop signature guitars. We've got standard Les Pauls from the early noughties as a kind of control group, a reference point, benchmark, if you like, for standard Les Paul, and everything in between. So what we thought we'd do is we've actually got 8 guitars which we picked out from that whole broad spectrum from absolute original burst to dead bog standard noughties Les Paul, and we're going to have a little bit of a shootout. And the way we're going to do it is we've put all of the names of the guitars that we've got in today's shootout in a hat, which we have here, the purple top hat of Tone, which is lent to us personally by Slash. It wasn't really, just he didn't care about what we're doing today, but we've got all the names in a hat, and we're going to pick out pairs, and our intrepid test guitarists are going to play those 2 guitars that we picked out of the hat and pick which they think is favourite, and that will go on to the next round, and hopefully at the end of it we'll arrive at a unanimous winner. I should say these are all fabulous guitars, so really this is a bit of fun in a way, but it's just a nice way to explore some of the gorgeous guitars that have been produced by Gibson in the Les Paul department over the years. So first to introduce our guitarists, on the left here, a man who probably needs no introduction. So this is Chris Buck from Cardinal Black. Very great to have you back with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And our very own Richard Barrett from Guitarist Tone Lounge. Regular viewers will know him from his fabulous demos of gear that we've done. And looks like we've got a great day's testing and playing to do. So, gents, I think I'll give Chris the honour of picking out the first Les Paul to go into the ring.
Let's have a look. Oh. Says Squire Affinity Telecaster. No, a 2016 Gibson Custom Shop Mark Knopfler 58 Les Paul Standard.
Great solid start.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to need this special equipment to read my ticket, I think. All right. 1999 Gibson Custom Les Paul Standard 40th Anniversary Cherry Burst.
Great. Well, game on.
Good thing I haven't had a drink reading all that.
Okay, so we've got our first 2 contenders here. We've got a 2016 Gibson Custom Mark Knopfler 1958 Les Paul Standard VOS, and I believe Chris has got that one in his hands there. And Richard has a 1999 Gibson Custom 40th Anniversary 1959 Les Paul Standard. So it's 58 versus 59, separated by 17 years in manufacturer. Quick word on signal chain. We're going into 1968 50-watt Plexi Marshall there. We've kept it primarily with the Marshall. It's the classic pairing with Les Pauls, so we thought that would be fitting. We do have some effects here that the guys can stomp on if they need to. There's J-Rocket Caliber 45, JTM 45 style overdrive. There's a Hooligan Fuzz, also by J-Rocket, and we've got Space Echo delay and a Free the Tone reverb there. The guys will be switching, or both be going through that board, but if they fancy having a jam, there's also a Fender Blues Junior here for Fendery sounds for the person accompanying the demonstrator, if you will. So without further ado, let's do further, and I think we'll start with you, Richard.
Right.
So the Gibson Custom 40th Anniversary.
I've got a little bit from the Caliber 45 and a bit of flattering reverb into the Marshall, and well, let's have a little listen to the neck pickup. I like the old Gibson wiring. I like the 50s wiring because that's not gone all.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Jimmy Page playing Ramble On and realising that he was just flicking between the two.
Yeah.
Getting some lovely resonance from the acoustic guitars hanging up here. I'm going to incorporate it into future demos if I can.
So what's your first impressions of the guitar, Rich?
I find that, people talk about the Les Paul as being really full and fruity. And of course it does have that, but it's got this detail at the top end as well. And even though it's not a heavy body, it's quite light actually, but you do get the feeling that you could really push an amp with it and you'd have no problem getting that. You might roll the tone back a bit or something. But if you dig in with everything wide open, there's no shortage of pick attack. And I like that. And I also like that when you turn it down, it doesn't suddenly have a blanket over it. In fact, that's more apparent to me on the neck pickup, that it's got that snappy...
So Richard, what do you, when you're playing a burst style guitar, what are you looking for from the pickups particularly? I mean, you touched on it earlier, but what?
I suppose it depends on the style a bit. If you want to go sort of with anything with any sort of higher gain on it, then you're going to need a bigger stage or wax dipped pickup. That sounds like it'd behave. It's not ringing. I like to have the detail on there and maybe back the tone off, or even back off the tone on the amp a little bit if I don't want it to be too bitey. But what I generally find with a good Les Paul like that is that you don't have to be frightened of the treble, that it's got the sort of spank at the top. I don't know if you find the same thing.
Yeah, totally. I think they're kind of they're bright and this detail and this kind of that articulation, but they're never ear piercing.
It's a kind of elusive thing.
It's never ice picky. Yeah. At least in a good one anyway.
And just on sort of playability, weight, so forth. What's your initial feelings?
I like the balance.
Yeah,
I like the balance of it. I like the fact that it's not too weighty. I mean, I don't mind. With a Les Paul, I expect a certain amount of weight to it, but this is a nice balance. I mean, you could wear that for a rehearsal day and not go away at the end, needing knee supports, whatever. So yeah, I think that's lovely, and I also quite like the chunky-ish neck.
Yeah.
On this, I find that a slimmer neck can sometimes be more fatiguing in a funny kind of way, because you spend your time reaching round the thing.
Well, that's probably a good moment to let's have a little listen to our other contender, because we mentioned the chunky necks. This is a 58 or a replica of Mark Knopfler's 58. Should also be quite girthy of neck. So let's hear it.
In there somewhere. That's really good. I think proximity to the amp probably helps a little bit with that sustain there that we're getting.
It's lively, yeah.
Pretty much sat on top of a 4x12, but I don't know. I'm always reticent to say that featherweight guitars, at least to me, feel a little bit more resonant for the most part anyway, and feel a little bit more lively under the fingers. This is incredibly light. It's a hair over 8, which I guess for Les Pauls, is incredibly light. But there's just responsiveness straight away when I picked it up. I really liked this. Probably cost more than Mark paid for his actual burst, I imagine. I like to play the top as well, actually. I'm a big fan of playing tops. I think this kind of getting that grain in there as well is just lovely. That's a really nice guitar. This, talking about that kind of PAF thing earlier, I think this articulation and this clarity there, that kind of girth, for want of a better word.
The right mids.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a mid-range in PAFs as well, which is kind of slightly nasal, slightly quacky. You've got a kind of honk there, but it's not dominating. It's not overwhelming. That's a really good sounding guitar. I really do like this one.
Yeah. What's the neck on like on that one?
Funny enough, talking about the guys downstairs earlier, so I've never actually played a 58. Played many a 59 and been very lucky, but I've never played a real 58, at least not a standard. So I've not got anything to compare it against really in terms of, I know Gibson's typical 58 reissue neck can feel a little bit like uncultured, I guess, or clubby. They can just feel a little bit sort of, like a baseball bat. This is quite comfortable. I would say it's a little bit more kind of typical to what I would expect of a 59 than the reissue 58s I've played over the years. It certainly doesn't stand out as big. It certainly doesn't stand out as cumbersome in any way. So yeah, really cool.
So it's from a sort of perspective of someone who's looking on, it sounds a little bit hotter and sort of fruitier, that one. Like it's got a little bit
body.
Yeah,
I think it feels like it's got a little bit more kind of grunt to it.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, it'd probably be fairest if you both had sort of hands-on with these guitars. Why don't we have
swap them over?
Swap them over, but if you like, you'd have a little jam with the Fender on as well, but swap over so you both get hands-on.
Sure. Tell you what, do you want to?
Which one? Okay, so just so that both guys have a chance to have hands-on with both guitars, they're going to have a little jam. This time, Chris will have the anniversary Les Paul, and Rich has got the Mark Knopfler. Rich, are you plugged into the Plexi at the moment?
I'm in the Plexi.
And Chris is into our little Blues Junior. So we have a little jam, just so we both get a chance to play them. And then we'll do a summing up and you'll pick a winner of this first round.
It's going to be tricky.
Oh, man.
No pressure then.
Beautiful.
Cool.
So, guys, they're both lovely guitars. There are no losers here, really, in a real sense. But if you had to pick one of the two, what's your vote?
That one for me.
Especially the neck pickup of this one. I agree. Yeah, and it kept some of that fruitiness because I know, you were saying the proximity, and I agree, of course, but it still had that it wanted to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. That one for me.
Okay, so the winner of the first round is the Mark Knopfler 1958, and on to our next two. Okay, time for round two. So I'm going to offer Richard the purple top hat of town.
Right.
And,
have a little rummage. Right. Okay.
what have you picked out?
2002 Gibson Les Paul Standard Black.
Okay, so that's the underdog here. It has to be, even though it's a very nice standard Les Paul. It's in some pretty good company
Might
here.
be amazing.
Could be a giant killer though.
What have we got? Custom, a collector's choice, 57 Les Paul Standard, aged Goldtop.
Okay,
That's the,
Goldtop versus 2000 early noughties standard. So game on. Okay, round two. We've got here in Richard's hands, we have a 2002 Gibson Les Paul Standard, which is our benchmark straight vanilla Les Paul on this, but it's a very nice guitar. And Chris has a Gibson Custom Collector's Choice number 12 Henry's guitar, which is our only Goldtop, only Goldtop so far. So let's have at it then. Rich, do you want to have it play us through?
We're plugged
the
into the Marshall, same settings, same effects. I think this has got the more modern humbuckers in it, slightly more powerful. And I think modern wiring. It's not muffled, it's just a slightly different kind of tone. And let's have a little listen to both. I always think of Jimmy Page with that kind of tone. I guess another thing that I'm interested in with these is how they are when they're not plugged in at all. And this is quite strident. And I noticed that someone's top wrapped it. So I don't know if this has got a slightly heavier string on it, perhaps. It doesn't feel, it's quite compliant, but I think the string's a bit fatter. Maybe it's 11 to 48 or power slinky type thing.
What's your initial thoughts, just sort of sound-wise and playability-wise?
I mean, it balances quite nicely. It's got a heavier body. These aren't weight-relieved particularly. I don't know if this was the Swiss cheese era or something like that.
Yeah, I think it would have been Swiss cheese in about 2002, yeah.
We'll have to go to an airport and get it x-rayed. But I find it quite comfortable. I think that it's quite slim at the nut end. And it's hard without comparing. It's definitely less neck going on than on these reissues. It's slimmer. So I don't know if this is the 59 rounded or if this has got more of the 60. Very hard to tell, actually. What do you reckon? Looking at that,
I would say that's the 60s. I've got a 2002 Standard.
Right.
Same year as that, and I would say the neck on mine, without having it to hand, feels a little bit bigger than that. So I'd say that's probably the 60s spec.
Yeah, more of a kind of classic sort of neck.
Sitting here as a sort of onlooker, I'm hearing a little bit more, slightly more aggressive mids. It's quite hot sounding, quite bright as well. It's a bit more of a rock focused guitar, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not certain, but I'm gonna gamble that this is the 498T here, sort of hot Alnico, and that would be the 490. I think that's what they were putting in the sort of production line sort of standards at the time.
Whereas we were speaking to Paul Tucker here at Vintage and Rare Guitars, and he was saying that all of the custom guitars that we've got in here have got custom buckers with Alnico 3s.
Okay.
So they're almost quite a level playing field. Apart from that one, he said that one's got Alnico 2 custom bucker S's in. So it's low wind. So this one should be an interesting comparison. With that, shall we sort of hear Chris, and then we can have a little bit of a chat about the comparison?
Just that cable over.
So we should be going from quite a hot pickup sound to a low wind, so this should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Warmer mids.
Yeah. Less output, I guess, than that straight away.
Right.
Yeah, cool. I should probably declare I very much like this guitar, and I've had prior experience with this one, so I think I'm going to be slightly biased here, maybe. But yeah, this is a very good guitar, having played it on a video shoot a couple of years back. Just like everything about it, it's a bit of an interesting one in terms of specs as well, I guess, being a 57 kind of reissue, I guess, in the looser sense, in that it has smaller frets. Like pointed out as well earlier, Jamie, the logo, the Gibson logo, is slightly lower. Yeah, this is a very cool guitar. Sorry.
And they haven't gone crazy with any of the sort of oxidization or anything on this one. It's
beautiful guitar. It's very nice.
Can we hear the neck pick up a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, man, yeah.
Sorry.
It's maybe,
You mentioned that this has got low wind pickups in. Everybody probably has a sweet spot they like with Les Paul pickups, sort of strength. And where do you sit on that spectrum, guys?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan. I mean, kind of battled against quite hot pickups in Les Pauls over the years. Nothing too hot. I think you're looking to get something out of the guitar which doesn't necessarily want to give. But at the same time, I think the last time I played this guitar, actually, incidentally, the pickups were very low. Tucker had dropped them right down. So having them back kind of a little bit more kind of mid-ground, I think suits me better. So yeah, somewhere in between, I guess. Yeah, is the obvious cliched answer.
Yeah. I concur, and I think that's a really good point. Something the guitar doesn't want to give. I think that's true, because a lot of the time you can let volume carry it, and I also think that the hotter pickups have a different EQ curve as a general thing. The sort of resonant peak of a more vintagey pickup seems to be a bit higher, so you get a more open sound. Whereas when they're slightly more wound like this, I think you end up losing a bit of that extreme high, and it
push the mid-range.
Emphasises
not a particularly desirable area in the mid-range as well. I think I've always been a little bit of a loss as to what not the point is of higher output pickups, I guess, but what you were looking to achieve from them. It's like, well, if you're looking to push your amp, there's more transparent ways of doing that than just overloading
I'm thinking they might be a sort of a relic of the days when there weren't a lot of pedals and things like that around.
I certainly think you have to view a little bit in context of the era when you're looking at standard production instruments like this one. And this is a nice example of that standard production.
Yeah, it's a good guitar.
But I often think of like sort of Britpop and things like that, like quite big, open, brash, martially sort of sound, for which it excels at. And
let's have a quick switch a minute.
Let's have a switch around.
Wrap my hands around that.
Okay, so Chris, we've switched guitars. You've got the 2002 through the Marshall Plexi. Let's have a little go.
Definitely feels not as bright as that one. I think you're not getting as much top end detail. It's a cool guitar though. It plays really nice.
Yeah,
sounds cool.
Could be exactly what someone wants. It's harder.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And it's a sound that I'm kind of used to as well, having had a 2002. It's kind of something that immediately feels like a guitar that I've heard before. Strangely.
Yeah.
And let it be said, in this company, that's definitely punching above its weight here, because this is as a collector's choice one. That's a very posh Les Paul, and so no shame at all to be punching above its weight in this company.
Absolutely.
So guys, do you want to have a little jam like last time, just to sort of and then announce which one you think you like the best?
Take it away, man.
That was an extra bonus note in there. I don't know if you spotted the deliberate mistake.
But I tell you what, what's interesting hearing you play the Goldtop through the Fender there is actually those low winds. You can get almost like single coily Fendery sounds. I know there's a bit of power of suggestion playing through a Fender amp, but you can see that it brings you almost into that sort of ballsy telly type territory.
Yeah. And when you're driving the amp, it's almost like what frequency range. Like people would use a treble boost or whatever, and I'm sort of hearing a different drive coming off this because of what it's pushing out.
Yeah, totally.
A fair play to that one. That was sounding really nice. I mean, it's the wizard, not the one, but
Oh, absolutely. As much as I declared an affinity for that, for prior experience, like I said, that feels like home to a degree as well. So, punching well above its weight. I really do like that.
Do you reckon that's 11s on there? It's got a little bit more weight to the top three. I'm wondering if it's
I think so.
Top-wrapped 11s.
Like my experience would suggest the top wrapping tends to kind of take some of the sort of...
They're more compliant, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually reduce the tension. There's a lot of controversy about that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a whole nother video.
So, crunch time. Is it the Giant Killer from 2002 or is it our 57 classic?
I think, unfortunately, on this occasion, I think Barnsley have probably been knocked out to Man City for me, at least. Probably going to go with the Goldtop. Unfortunately, I wish it weren't so, but as good as that is, and it's worth pointing out that is a very good guitar, I think...
I could take that and use it, no
absolutely.
problem at all.
It's a cool looking guitar as well. I like the all black thing. That's it's cool, but that one for me. Sorry.
Okay, so there we go. The winner is... with no shame, the Black Les Paul goes home with pride intact, but unfortunately, the gravity asserted itself here, and the Collector's Choice Goldtop is the winner there. So on to our next pair. Okay, on to round 3. Chris, I'll let you pick the first one.
It's already left.
Rummage in the
Go on.
in the top hat.
But it is the Grainger Burst.
Okay, so a real genuine actual burst and a very good one too. Okay, so.
All right, just got to look the other way. I've only got one, haven't I? Right, yes. 2009 Gibson Custom Shop Jimmy Page No. 2 Murphy Aged.
Interesting matchup. Okay, well, let's have at it. Okay, round 3. A really interesting matchup this time. We've got the 2009 Gibson Custom Jimmy Page No. 2 Les Paul Standard Murphy Aged. These guitars are getting very sought after in their own right now, let alone the original, which would be invaluable, priceless, basically. This particular guitar's got a lot of tricks up its sleeve. We're not going to demo them next to each other. We want it to be a fair fight. But Richard, perhaps you can explain a little bit.
Every control has a push-pull. So I had a little look through. I think that there's coil split here and series parallel there. We also have 2 under the pick guard here. And the one that I think is sort of the most or the least subtle and most recognisable is the phase. So at the moment we have just standard and then the middle. Which is very recognisably pagey. Now, if I put it back onto both humbuckers and just under here, so it's really easy to hand, we should have. Can you play Peter Green on a Jimmy Page Les Paul? So that's, and obviously different combinations of switching give different sounds, which I'm not going to demonstrate because it'd take all day.
They're almost in double figures. I think they are into double figures in terms of the combinations you can get. As mentioned, in the interest of a fair fight with this incredible guitar here, we're going to keep that in standard, the most standard switching configuration. But Chris, perhaps you can tell us about this guitar you've got.
Yeah, by comparison, it's totally lacking in options, isn't it? I mean, just 3, but again, I should probably declare allegiance. I've played this guitar a fair amount in the past. Just love it to pieces. I think, again, we were talking about it on the way over to Bath this morning, saying that if someone was to try and knock up a fake 59, I think you'd be laughed out of court for looking like Wolverine has played this one at some point in its life. It's obviously seen a fair amount of use. Belonged to Gary Grainger, of course, famed session guitar player for most of his career, actually, I think, and just showing the signs of a life well lived. It's just a phenomenal guitar. It's just one of those ones that, I don't know, it seems to kind of second guess what it is you're going to do next, and kind of be there ready to deliver it, irrespective of what that is, it's just a very, very good guitar.
So this is the real McCoy. This is the only actual genuine 59 burst we've got in this test. So it's the template from which all other Les Pauls are taken, or at least the yardstick against which they're measured. Quick word about pickups on this. This one's got, akin with everything else on this guitar, it's got fancy tweaks on it. So the bridge pickup is a special wine Jimmy Page Alnico 5 burst bucker.
I think he said it was a burst bucker with an Alnico 5, yeah. I think
Yeah, and then the neck was something a bit more standard, wasn't it?
Yeah, burst bucker 3.
So, yeah.
We'll flash it up on screen.
Please don't write it.
And these are DiMarzio Super Distortions. Not original PAFs, I think. Yeah, I think as far as I'm aware, it's all original.
Cool. Well, let's hear some sounds and let's see how these guitars match up.
The kind of shades of grey you get with those old pots is just incredible. It's so smooth. It's so every position, every subtle kind of micro change you make is just another different tonal array. It's really cool.
One thing I noticed is something we mentioned earlier: this idea of treble that doesn't hurt the ears. This
Yeah.
sweet treble. It's almost an oxymoron, but it exists. You know.
Let's check the neck a minute. I think, it's lovely. And what's interesting is hearing the neck pickup. On that 57 Goldtop with the low winds, we're hearing something that's more single coil-like. This isn't single coil-like, but it has nuance, it has delicacy, it has softness, which is really beautiful to hear. And I know it's hard to sort of erase from your mind the fact it is a real burst, but that's known for being a good sounding burst even among bursts, isn't it? Yeah. I've been lucky to play quite a few of them now, and this is the one that I always kind of found myself gravitating towards whenever anyone asks me, what's the kind of the pinnacle of Les Paul for me, to be honest. This is consistently the one, the best one I've played.
Yeah. Okay, well, the Jimmy Page has got his work cut out, but let's switch to Richard going into the Marshall with the Jimmy Page.
I had a thing recently I was saying about non-copyright. It's a really slim neck. I'm finding
neck position on that sounds especially good.
Yeah. Well, I realised I had that down at about 7. So. makes me want to go into Led Zeppelin riffs, for sure.
I must say, I love that bridge pickup. It sounds, it's so toothsome, for want of a better word.
Yeah,
It's quite aggressive, actually.
We've got that same kind of dynamic range as well with the volume pot. Especially on the neck, for my money, it's...
And by complete chance, we've got the two guitars with Grovers on.
Yes,
yeah?
actually, yeah.
So that's quite interesting. People say it does make a difference, but at least we've got the matchup like for like.
Yeah.
Having said that, I feel like these two guitars are... I love the sound of both these guitars, but I feel they're almost like, even though they're both bursts, it's almost like an apples and pears comparison, because that seems like a really rock-focused guitar. Like, it's quite pokey.
It's funny you should say that, because with the weight of the body, and it's got that super shaved neck, which I think he had done to match his number one, which had already been done.
Blushing.
So it's, it's a real 60s or maybe even less here. It's reminding me a little bit of the Black Standard.
Yeah.
It's not a terrible thing to say. But I think that was a really good guitar, and this hasn't quite got the upper mid bark. It's a little bit more sort of flat response, but
It's a kind of, to my mind, it's like a more refined version of that concept. You mentioned the Black Standard, great sounding guitar, but this has got like there's a bit more detail on the bridge pickup to my ears. The neck pickup's just a little bit more kind of articulate, maybe.
Yeah, that's just pure sort of vintage, really. I think,
And as mentioned, we're not touching any of the other tonal variations you can get. So this is really built to be very tweakable in terms of like thinner sounds, fatter sounds, etc., etc. Guys, do you want to swap and have a little compare and contrast?
Yeah, more top end, I would say, in that, especially on the bridge pickup.
do you reckon it's a hotter wind?
Possibly.
It sounds like it might be to me. Not loads in it, but
Yeah, definitely. The neck position is lovely on this. That's lovely. That's really, really nice. And it's affordable as well, relative to that. It's all relative, isn't it? But
many things are, I think.
Yeah, exactly. For a given value, it's affordable.
about a tenth of the price, I reckon.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's an interesting factor of all this, is that, I mean, real bursts are unobtainium for the vast majority of people. There's only a few people in the world who can really have one of these. These are becoming extremely collectible now, and they have shot up in price, has to be said. So they're not cheap guitars whatsoever. But
Are we talking 20?
£24,995 to use, so that's a big fat swedge of money.
About a tenth of the price, isn't it? We're all right.
About a tenth of the price. So yeah, this is not a trivial purchase, to say the least, but it's a great sounding guitar, and I guess for some people it will be the Jimmy Page connection and that desire to own the thing that's most like what your hero's got, especially with all the bells and whistles. But that said, really great aggressive sounding Les Paul. That.
Yeah.
Should have a little play and see.
Yep.
Get what you mean about this one wanting to go. Played another one of Andrew's bursts a couple of years ago, the Rich Rath. It used to belong to Gary Richrath from Mario Speedwagon.
Oh, yeah.
And that had a similar thing in terms of just wanting to go. The moment you plugged it in, it kind of felt like it was trying to sort of bolt the gate, you know, and this has a similar kind of vibe in terms of just...
The Richrath was aggressive.
Yeah, it wasn't it? It was just super aggressive, super kind of, explosive and vibrant, you know. So, similar kind of vibe.
So, I mean, this is probably the most difficult choice so far. Guys, what's your opinion? Which one of this walks away as the winner of the playoff? If there can be a winner. But
I mean, quite apart from, yes, all right, we're trying to pretend that we're not being aware of this being the real deal. I like the simpler wiring, personally. And though that does want to go... This, I mean, I haven't tried the bridge... It's not super high output, but it's got that sound, and so I think it would, just with a bit of a twist of the dial. Yeah. So I'm probably going to make the predictable choice.
Go with the Grainger.
I think probably safe for me as well. I guess the caveat of that, I've spent a lot of time with that guitar, so as much as the kind of gravitas or the kudos, I guess, of playing a burst is never totally lost on me. I think having spent as much time with that guitar as I have in, you know, kind of lots of different settings, it does give me a little bit more of a kind of objectivity about it, in terms of not being just totally blown away by the fact that that's the burst and this isn't. I think there's a hell of a lot that this does, which maybe that doesn't do straight out of the box, you know, in terms of, like I said, this has that super aggressive, wanting to go, wanting to kind of bolt the gate, whereas that doesn't. But I think I'd probably rather be trying to add stuff in like that to a guitar than detract from it. And I think that just feels probably like it would do more, I guess, in the grand scheme, you know, just in terms of it has more versatility, arguably.
And the weight and the balance is just so nice as well.
This is a nice weight as well. It's probably a little bit heavier than that one.
Got sort of, it feels like it's got a heavier body and a lighter neck, whereas this feels more even.
That just feels like a you know, two pieces of wood working in perfect harmony, you know. Not that this doesn't, but that's just...
No, absolutely.
There's something special about that one.
In a blindfold thing, I think I would still say, that feels good.
Yeah.
As a non-locker, I've only got a couple more things to add. One, I would say, is that the bridge spec on that sounds ace. I mean, it's not. Yeah. It's almost apples and pears comparison, but it cuts through the mix really well. And there's something about Jimmy Page's, you know, as a sort of producer, this idea of him creating a toolbox of tools is very much part of that guitar's DNA. So I'm going to give that massive props for sounding like a great aggressive Les Paul. I think there's a sweetness and a mellowness to that is just beautiful. And I think just for the grace of it and the classicness of it, I think it probably is a worthy winner by a nose, even if it is the predictable choice.
But that's got a bit of Page's personality coming out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a super guitar. Okay then, Grainger burst for the win that time. On to our next pair.
Couldn't find anything in there for a minute. I thought, that's what it is it?
Yeah. So.
Okay, wow, that's shocking. Go to ads, please. It's 54 Goldtop.
Yeah.
Cool. Up against an original 53 to 59 conversion burst.
So a very interesting matchup. Okay, our wild card is obvious. The 54 is a P90 spec guitar. We thought we'd throw it in there just because a lot of people really like the P90 Les Pauls best of all. So just to put the cat among the pigeons, don't hate us for not being completely symmetrical with our matchups here. We're going to put the 54 up against a conversion of an earlier spec. So again, we've got a fortuitous matchup. This is a Goldtop, what would have been a Goldtop, that was then converted to the
burst spec.
The burst spec because burst became more desirable. Great, well, game on, let's get the guitars. Okay, the last of our challenges in the heats. We've got another interesting matchup here. We've got a 1953 Gibson, which has been converted to 59 spec, Les Paul standard spec. So this started life as a 53 Goldtop, and it's been converted very skillfully to a 59 burst spec. And then as a kind of reverse of that coin, we've got 54, this one?
54, I believe,
54,
yes.
yeah. 54 Goldtop with all of the lovely oxidization and the kind of vibey, lived a life kind of feel there. And of course, those P90s, those sweet P90s. So let's kick off with the most original of the two in terms of spec and hear what that 54 sounds like.
Done all gold. Actually, that's got gold.
Yeah. I noticed that on the back. At least that seems to have. There's no serial number, so I'm assuming, and they add serial numbers by 54, so that's been sanded or refinished or something. Yeah. So cool. Sorry, go for the. Subtly staying away from the bridge pickup there, which I guess, contrary to the notion that all vintage guitars are brilliant, this one very much attesting to the fact that's not always the case, and having a little bit of an off day, as you will probably hear.
It's fair to say it's not what it should be doing at this
No, something's not working in time there.
Right. But boy, the neck pickup, I mean, God, what a sound. That's amazing.
That's, I mean, as much as I'm a sucker for a burst, this is probably my kind of dream spec. The Les Paul, to be honest, is a 55 wrap over tailpiece with P90s. That's kind of dream spec for me.
Well, a lot of people think that the PAF was modelled closely just to be a hum-free version of the voicing and tonality of the P90, and actually you can kind of hear that coming through.
Oh, there. Totally. There are a lot of commonalities for my money. Whenever I've ever played a great PAF and a great P90, there's definitely crossover. There's definitely some common ground there.
Yeah, so any other thoughts that occur, because you've obviously got the wrap overs, any sort of handling or feel things that leap out at you?
I've always been a big fan of wrap overs. I think they kind of get a little bit of a kind of bum deal, in terms of, obviously they have got their drawbacks in terms of, not as kind of bang on intonation possibly. But again, not to disappear down a rabbit hole, I think there's a lot to be said for that kind of direct connection with the guitar, in terms of it's straight in the body. And nothing else to kind of really worry about too much. So, I'm a big fan of wrap overs, always have been. I think that in combination with the P90s is a spec guitar that I kind of, play for most of the time anyway, in one guise or another. So, very, very cool.
Yeah. All right, Rich, well, let's have a go to this is the 53 that was converted nicely to 59 specs. So this has been an interesting comparison. Do you want to plug into the...
just going to say, probably be more meaningful if I do...
Sorry, stealing your cable.
Doesn't take long, does it?
What is happening? Yeah.
Right, I've still got the other one.
Cool.
Well, I'll start on the neck, I guess, so we've got a more direct. Let's meant to do that.
One thing worth saying quickly, these aren't original paths in that, are they? They're Dingwall.
Dingwall, yeah, that was a new one on me.
Yeah, no, I heard of them, but not played a lot. They certainly sound really nice, actually. They're probably, to my ears, they're somewhere between the strident sound of the Alnico 5s and the Jimmy Page and the sweetness of the Grainger. So
I was wondering, actually, you're plugging in after that lovely P90 sound. I was thinking, okay, what will this be like? Will it be a bit woolly? But it's got a bit of snap and attack. Especially, on those lower strings there. I don't know if you'll find this, Chris. I sometimes find I'm avoiding that register.
Yeah.
Because it's going to flub out.
Yeah, totally. They sound very, very good.
Yeah.
So great.
It does, and actually, this is of all the guitars that I've listened to you two play, this one seems to be, in the best possible way, the most down the middle, in that it's a very good compromise between lots of different aspects of the Les Paul that we've heard today. If one end of the spectrum would be the 2002 with the really kind of square mids and that sort of thing.
That push, modern push. Yeah.
And then if you took the Grainger as the sort of sweetest and the softest and the most sort of nuanced of the Les Pauls, this one is a sort of really great all-rounder sound.
I mean, on the bridge there, I'm hearing something of the Page brashness, but yes, it's a bit... You can dig in without any fear of it.
Seems a little bit more restrained than the Jimmy Page, and a little bit less strident.
What's interesting is, I don't have the precise details of what the conversion entailed and how much was kept and how much wasn't. But you could say this definitely has, because it's a conversion, has old woods in it, and maybe that sweetness is tempering some of the, the bite.
That's such an interesting subject, isn't it? The old woods. In fact, I was thinking about that on the way here, because I know that there's a lot to be said for good piece of wood and a good pickup, and you could, for instance, put this in a Strat and it wouldn't sound the same. But there is the school of thought that says, well, it's very talked up, this whole tone woods thing, but I'm genuinely somewhere in the middle. And I like the coupling into the body, like you were saying about that tail piece.
Probably subscribe to Paul Reed-Smith's kind of viewpoint on that, in terms of, I know people argue endlessly about the idea of tone woods, etc., but I think every element, to what percentage or to what degree, but every element, every facet of a guitar contributes in some way to its tone.
Yeah.
I guess to what percentage you proportion,
and action height.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Yeah, totally. And
I think that's the thing we don't say enough about guitars. It's all of those elements of the guitar. It's also all the cables that we're using. It's also all the pedals into the particular amp. That interaction between this kind of, this myriad almost of factors is what your tone ends up being. But I don't know, can't beat good old tone woods in some ways. That's the myth, but it seems to be borne out by what
This is another one of a lovely weight and balance as well.
Yeah.
On a practical basis. I mean, it might be a little heavier perhaps than it.
Yeah, have a swap over and see what you think.
I think that's heavier margin, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree. Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely lighter than that. Yeah.
Rich, do you want to have a go with that into the Marshall just to keep it?
Sure.
Sort of comparable.
Have a cable back.
Right.
Should I have that one?
Oh yeah. We're doing well. We're keeping tabs on these. That's good.
So, with the slight handicap of only having the neck pickup.
Immediately, I'm getting a bit more power and a bit more sort of high. My fingers are not doing what I tell them today. Yeah. Just hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen, while I get this pickup going. Yeah. I'd love to hear that bridge shell. I bet it's great when it's working. It'll be a simple enough thing. Just a bit of dirt or condensation or something, isn't it? But
I think we did touch on it earlier, but it is a really good point to make about vintage guitars. It's like, it's very easy to say, they're fabulous, they always sound better. This is not really true. And the thing that is worth bearing in mind is they are, like a lot of old things, they're temperamental, they take a fair bit of maintenance, and you can't just go changing stuff out willy-nilly if you want to keep it all original, which is part of the...
A friend of mine has a 58, and he was thinking about getting the fatter wire in it, and the luthier said, sure, if you want to lose 20 grand overnight.
Yeah. So there can be a bit of a gilded cage, no pun intended with the Goldtop, in terms of changing
Actually,
stuff.
this might be an all gold,
Yeah.
but it's lost its gold now, I think. But,
So, gents, let's have a little play, and then we'll have your final thoughts on this too.
Take it.
So, guys, I mean, this is a bit of an apples and pears comparison in a way, but what do you think?
Caveat for me being if that was totally working, I'd probably go for that. That's kind of my dream spec Les Paul, like I said. But in its current state, it's a little bit kind of hampered, I guess. This is a phenomenally good guitar. I'm very, very impressed by this. I've not played this one prior. It's a good weight.
lovely job done of that.
Yeah, feels really balanced. Just feels like a very, very good Les Paul. I'm not a massive fan of the colour. It's a little bit kind of faded out for me, I guess. A little bit kind of peachy, but taking the aesthetics out of it, it's a very good sounding guitar. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier in that how much of this is the pickups, how much of it is the old wood or whatever, but it feels like a very good halfway house between the aggression and the immediacy of that Jimmy Page one, but the softer kind of restrained element of Grainger, wherever that's gone.
Yeah.
A great halfway house,
And I like the top carve on that, and there's something about the way that everything sits. There's a nice sort of geometry about it. Nothing is sticking out too far. I don't like the really dish tops where everything feels like it's sticking out for miles. So that's a really sleek, neat looking guitar to me. Yeah.
So, guys, on the basis that this one pulled up to the start line with
a wheel missing.
I reckon it would have really knocked us out though with that going. I think it would have been great. I'd be surprised if not.
Yeah.
I think this might take though an honorary prize away, which is neck pickup of the match because Paul Tucker here at Vintage Red did come up the stairs and say, "Cool, was that the Goldtop? That sounded amazing." And it genuinely is a beautiful sounding pickup. We'll never know, unfortunately, whether it would have sounded even more sensational with both pickups.
Did give it our best shot, but yeah, it wasn't going to happen.
I have played that one in full working order at some point, and it's a great sounding guitar. But by virtue of you hit the nail on the head, vintage guitars aren't always the most reliable things in the world. So by virtue of reliability and fully functioning, I'm going to probably say the conversion.
Yeah.
Probably that if it was fully working.
It's a bit like Formula One when one of the cars runs out of fuel on the final lap and sort of gets disqualified. It could have won. Yeah. All right then. Well, that's a very worthy winner. The 1953 a conversion of a 1953 to 59 Les Paul standard spec. Excellent. Right, on to the final. So, of our final 4 guitars, you've got the 2 veterans here, if you like, the Grainger Burst in Chris's hands, and the conversion here, the 53 converted to 59 spec. Before we talk about them a bit, maybe you should pass that guitar to Chris to plug into the Marshall, so because Richard was playing there through the Blues Junior, which is quite a bright sounding amp, in the interests of hearing how they both sound through the Marshall, which is our main comparison amp. Let's have a little fiddle around with that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Stand by, I can't remember whose thoughts they were, mine or yours earlier, saying it feels like a kind of halfway house between the Grainger and the Jimmy Page earlier. That's a great sounding guitar. Super impressed actually by these. So they were Alan Dingwalls.
Yeah.
They sound great. They sound very good. I think this arguably, how much of it's perceived, how much of it's imagined, how much of it's real, I don't know. I'd say there's a touch sensitivity in the Grainger, which there is not to the extent in this conversion. But I would say it does the kind of aggressive thing arguably better than the Grainger does. Yeah. So I think, again, there's pros and cons of both, yeah.
What's your thoughts, Richard?
Well, I mean, I'll have to have a little... I mean, this is less aggressive, but it's really resonant, and I think there are things that this will do that won't do.
And probably vice versa.
Probably vice versa. Yeah. I didn't want to go straight in with that, but yeah, I agree. I think that this has got a rounder, a fatter attack to the note. It's not lacking in the bite, but it's got a rounder attack. A bit sweeter.
Sweetness is the term that comes to mind when I, either through that amp or through that amp. What was interesting is they've got great clarity, that guitar. That's a guitar that will cut through the mix nicely, and without its trebles being at all harsh. Even saying that doesn't have harsh treble, putting this into the brighter of the 2 amps immediately softens it and makes it, so to my ears, I would say that most people, I don't think many guitarists say, I need bags more treble. Mostly what people like to hear is that feeling of a beautiful, blooming, warm note that doesn't hurt your ears. And I think one thing you can say about Grainger, I know it seems sort of predictable in a way because it is the burst, the holy of holies, but it just sounds so sweet and mellow and musical.
Well, and just playing a couple of notes on it through that, then what I was noticing about playing that guitar, you could get things out of it, but then suddenly I can just... I haven't suddenly turned the gain up or anything, and it doesn't sound more distorted.
Perilously on the edge of Spinal Tap, there, aren't we?
Yes.
Feel the sustain? You would if it were playing.
Shall we go and have a bite?
Yeah. This is an incredible guitar. I'm very, very impressed. But I've not played this prior to today's video show. This is a really good guitar. I think, again, I kind of find myself leaning towards that one a little bit.
Okay, these are our 2 veterans. Let us, just holding that thought, let's go to our 2 slightly... Whippersnappers and bring them into the mix. Oh wow! So they both sound beautiful, those guitars, but quite different.
Oh yeah, this has thrown me a little bit because I was sort of thinking I might know where this would end up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say then, before just to preempt whatever you guys have to say, that what's really interesting is that has this sort of versatility. You feel you could go do anything with that guitar because that low wind seems to put it in not a more neutral place, and I don't mean that in a sort of insipid way. It's just like it's not imposing too much of a specific direction on you. It sounds really
it allows the sort of skill and judgment of the operator to come through. Yeah,
not me playing it.
This one's a bit more of a monster.
It is a monster. I'm actually reminded of the dear late Bernie Marsden's Beast, actually, with that similar kind of almost overpowered. It's not what you'd call like a hyper aggressive. It's just a lot. There's a lot there.
I mean, because we didn't really do a whole lot of preparation for what we were going to play. Just plugged this in with the same settings and it went. I thought, okay, go with it.
The position which leaps out with me with this one is the middle. Just kind of... There's a lot of top end still in there.
Mm-hmm.
Almost kind of like faux acoustic kind of quality.
But not pingy. Sometimes they're a little ping. I know that's also partly a string height thing, but I don't know, that guitar doesn't have that kind of bad sound in it.
Yeah, totally.
No,
it's a very cool guitar, this one. I'm really kind of resonate with this one every time I pick it up.
I would say, in the interest of fairness, let's, because Richard, you were playing through the Fender, which is the brighter, glassier amp. Let's swap them around and see how they fare.
Well, it's got more go in it than I thought it was going to have.
Doesn't want to go quite as quickly as this one, I don't think.
No, that was
this one's
instant.
Kind of rare at the gate, it's a bit of a monster.
And the nice thing is, I don't know if you have this, you think it's going to go, and then it goes off on some weird harmonic and not an octave above like you hoped, but that is an octave above, and it's
straight up rock.
Thoughts, gentlemen?
Can I just check the neck pickup on this?
Exactly.
I tend to kind of gravitate towards subtle or more subtler sounding guitars, I think, and try to find other ways of getting the kind of more aggressive stuff out of them, whether that's amp settings or whether that's pedals or whatever, than trying to tame a guitar, which I feel is trying to kind of get away from it all the time.
It's hard to dial it back,
Yeah, so on that front, I would go for that. I also like gold guitars, so all important aesthetics.
This is gold.
Funny enough. So as much as I do like that kind of more aggressive sort of rear in fret kind of element of the Knopfler, which is surprising actually, because it's not something you would probably associate with Mark Knopfler. He doesn't strike me as a particularly rear in fret kind of bloke.
No.
But then actually what's interesting is sometimes if you have a hotter guitar but you play fingerstyle, it's almost like a kind of perfect match of softness from one element of your playing and then a bit more.
Yeah, fair point, yeah.
So again, it's that back to that idea of it's actually the whole network of how
I suppose, I was digging in a bit on that actually, especially when I realised it was going to feed back. It was tremendous fun.
Gents, I'm getting the idea that the 57 might just have, by a nose, might have won that scrap.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think with a guitar that's a bit shoutier, for want of a better way of putting it, then it can sometimes be hard to go, but not now. Yeah. Whereas this can be made to shout. And I was surprised when plugged into that
it did.
just kind of half a notch away from that, really.
What was interesting was I think the 57 also worked better in both amps, whereas I almost like the Knopfler into the Fender because it's so fat. It seemed to sort of...
they work together.
Yeah. Whereas there would be days where the Knopfler would be the one that you really fancied having a blast on, but for all-round kind of usability.
As I get older, I find I have those days less frequently.
Yeah.
Chilling out in my dotage. That one for me.
Okay, so it's the 57.
Well, I think that I should have them both and take them away from here to my house.
Yeah. So we've arrived at kind of 2 finalists.
Something like that.
Yeah, so not the worst guitars I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, really nice. I mean, what's interesting is, well, I'll tell you what, you're playing them. You tell us what your thoughts are on these two.
Well, I'm a bit of a telly man myself.
Very strats. I've kind of run out of superlatives with this guitar, to be honest. It's you know, I don't know, I feel bad, really. You know, I'm going to kind of shoot out of Les Pauls and invariably converging on the one which the internet will no doubt expect you to converge on, but I think it's, you know, cliches for a reason, and it's they're known. You know, that's not to say every burst I've ever played has been an absolute blinder. This one consistently, it's almost unfair to chuck it in the mix, really, because of all the ones that I've played, you know, kind of quote-unquote famous ones included, this is the one that always kind of wakes me up in cold sweats at night, you know, thinking, what can I sell? Who can I sell? But it's just a phenomenally good guitar, you know. It's one of those things as well, like I said earlier, you know, I tend to kind of gravitate towards Paul Reed Smith's thinking in terms of it's every facet, it's every little aspect of this guitar that cumulatively adds up to being it being such a good instrument. You know, if you stuck these PAFs in another guitar, it wouldn't sound like Grainger. You know, it's the PAFs, it's the potentiometers, it's the hardware, it's the frets, it's the bloody Wolverine gouge marks. You know, it's the nut, which I guess is not original looking at it, you know, but seems to be nylon, as they would have been. There's so much about this guitar. It's the Grovers. It's everything about this guitar And again, it's cliches, but clearly a guitar that's been as well loved and as kind of gigged and kind of rid hard and put away wet as this one clearly has over the years. It tends to be for a reason, and it's just a blindingly good guitar. Even I guess it's a guitar, in terms of its appearance at the very least. A lot of kind of collectors would balk at, just in terms of it's a mismatched top. You've got flame, and then you've got predominantly grain on this side.
I actually quite like that.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's just such a kind of distinctive feature of it, that straight away you see a picture of it and it could be no other guitar. It's like, oh, that's Grainger. Whether it's because of the gouge marks, it's because it's someone apparently trying to fill in the kind of colour fade there with some lipstick at some point, It's just such a storied and such a history kind of laden guitar. Whether that's the kind of romantic in me that kind of gravitates towards that story and that... kind of whatever you want to call it, I guess. Nothing
wrong with that, though, I don't think. And there are only so many of those around, and that one has seen some pretty ace gigs, and it's been on recording sessions, and I don't know, before we were born.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a blindingly good guitar, and I do love that guitar.
I've got to say, this holds up fantastically well against it.
Well, I've got the card here that goes with it. £8,495 this guitar is on sale for. It's a collector's choice number 12, Henry's guitar. Considering that is worth many times more, it's a real burst. You almost won't, it's guaranteed you won't own one in your lifetime if you're like most people. This one is an expensive guitar for most people. There's no getting away from that. But you could put away money over time and realistically hope to get one of that. And the gap between them, sound-wise, in terms of the quality of the experience of it, isn't as wide as the gap value-wise, I would say.
I think that's the thing with bursts. You're not getting, proportionately or commensurately, you're not getting that much more guitar for a burst. This happens to be a particularly good one, but obviously there's so much more at play with burst. There's scarcity, there's the historical and cultural kind of relevance and importance to all of the music that we kind of know and love, and grew up listening to. There's so much more at play with bursts, It's not just this guitar is worth so much more than that one because this is X amount better guitar, There's so many factors at play, but, that is a astoundingly good guitar. I used that on a live session in here, funnily enough. Did a couple of videos a couple of years ago and kind of found myself gravitating towards that one on the day. It just, the middle position especially, I think, was the real kind of winner on that one for me.
Yeah.
Arguably more than this one. There we go. I said it.
If I came into money, there's all sorts of reasons why. I mean, if I knew money would never be an object, then, I would be very tempted to make the choice. But I've got to say, you can't discount this. This is really holding up against it, isn't it? And just fantastic guitar. How many of these could you buy from one of those?
I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
A burst would terrify the life out of me if I wasn't in a position to be able to
afford one. The
responsibility of taking one. You're playing a piece of history.
Yeah.
Of the 1,500 or so made, only 2,000
it goes
remain,
beyond
as they
money.
say. So, it goes beyond money. You're kind of, you're the curator almost, aren't you? The kind of the keeper of a bit of history. So even if I could afford one, I don't think I would own one just because it would terrify the life out of me. So I would gravitate towards something like that, Yeah.
I think we talk about also insurance, about the question of originality, having your kind of your hands are tied a little bit if you wanted to change it because who's going to, want to change anything.
I can't imagine wanting to change anything about it, but yes.
No, exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah. But I think you are liberated from those concerns, let's say, when you're playing a guitar, which is, effectively a much newer guitar made to look old. And I think that's the real takeaway. Two things that occur to me listening to you both playing. One is how much diversity there is within one body shape, one, ostensibly one construction style of guitar. The other thing that occurs is there are, it's a cliche, but there aren't really losers here in the sense that, okay, we've done this in a bit of a shootout format, but we haven't done it, this is not what FIFA would do for the World Cup. We know there haven't been playoffs of the runners-up or anything like that. It's hopefully been just a fun way to explore the ways in which Les Pauls can sound different to each other and what people like. I would say, though, that it's interesting that you've both arrived at softer, more lyrical sounding guitars.
They're sweeter sounding, even acoustically.
That one seems a little bit more lively acoustically than this one.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
The saddest key of all.
I think.
Oh,
Sorry, it's D minor, isn't it?
That's
D minor,
slightly less sad because it's higher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think almost inevitably, in a way, we've crowned the Grainger the guitar of the day. But of course, being unobtainium, almost genuinely unobtainium, I think perhaps the real world winner here is this Collector's Choice 57. Shout out to all the other guitars, absolutely fabulous. All of them are for sale here at Vintage and Rare Guitars, with the exception of Grainger and with the exception of the Black 2002 Les Paul Standard, which has already gone to a new home, and a very happy owner that will be, I know. And thank you for letting us use this guitar as our benchmark. Do you want to play us out then with a little bit of music just to wind things up? Thanks very much to Chris Buck and Richard Barrett.